Me and this old workbench. The things I've gotten to do right here on this workbench and the stuff that I got coming up that I get to share with you guys this year and, well, in this video alone. I got to give credit to the Patreons, the guys on the Patreon app. You go to Patreon, you open an account, you come find me, and then you can show support. I work on a one-to-one basis. I create the content, and I leave it up to you guys if you want to show support or not. The stuff that I have gotten to look at on this workbench is all because I have the support of you guys. It has nothing to do with me as a person. Nothing to do with me as a person. It's all because of the continued support of you guys. Today we're going to talk about another partnered company that I have. You guys all know about, I've got Penna, XS, Siglet, MechMan. I'm telling you, XS is getting ready to drop some stuff that's going to just fry your guys' brains. Bird and Coaxial Dynamics. Bird just dropped a new digital meter, which I think we're going to be able to get our hands on and do a review of here pretty shortly. But we'll see. We'll see what Dale over at Bird has to say. Needless to say, on the topic of watt meters, that's what we're here to talk about today. I've been working with a company called Steaming Coax. I'm going to put their webpage up here at the top. Steaming Coax is a young man, very young man, who is a broadcast engineer in Canada, the Canuckans, the northern radio operators. He decided deep down inside himself, the cockles of his heart, that he wanted to develop a digital bird meter. And most of you guys have already seen the version 1. The version 1 video of this meter will be down on the doobly-doo. This is version 2 that we're going to talk about today. And where we're going to step off in the video is basically starting from zero. Where and what parts are you going to need to make this work? And we're going to go forward from there. So the first segment we're going to see is the unboxing. The next segment that we're going to see is how to operate it. And the next segment that we're going to watch is us testing it. And we're going to get out our calibrated emission, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to hook it up just like what we would here on the workbench. And we're going to talk about it and show it in correlation with these bird meters. Okay. This is a software-defined, software-motivated piece of measuring equipment that is designed to go in all of your Bird43 cases. So on that note, I want to say thanks to all the Patreons, number one. Number two, I want to thank every single one of you guys before we go forward, and that's every one of you guys in YouTube land that's watching, listening, tuning in, giving me a thumbs up, dropping a comment, positive, negative, I don't care either way. A comment is a comment. And a big shout out to our friends up here, Steaming Coax. And what he means by Steaming Coax is your coax has gotten so hot that when the snow falls on it, it's literally burning off. Steam. I think it's a cool name. Anyhow, gentlemen, Steaming Coax digital bird meter version number 2. Here we go. Okay. Let's talk about the Bird43 real quick. Bird43 consists of a case, meter movement, it's the round thing in the center, line section, that's the part that goes through the case, your element, which is the element that you plug into the line section. That's it. Now, it is designed to work with complex RF signals, primarily geared around FM and CW. I can already see the comments in the doobly-doo section down below. That is Bird's new thing, complex RF. Anyhow, to make it read accurately on AM, they developed a Pep Kit, which is a device that plugs on the back of the meter, which has got a small op amp attached to it, and it makes it read the peak envelope measurements. The gentleman in Florida who originally designed the Pep Kit that we've all come to know and love with a multiplier built into it, developed a board that was more accurate and didn't burn through batteries. He had himself a Pep Kit that come from Bird. It uses 2 9-volt batteries, and he found after leaving it on for about a day, the 2 9-volt batteries would be dead. So he thought, well, there's got to be a better way. That, and what he wanted to do was build expansion into the Bird meter with the multiplier. Okay, that's a very short, brief history. If you guys want a more detailed analysis of how this all works, I did Bird Meters 101 and Bird Meters 102, which is a more in-depth hours of long of me speaking with words, and there's meaning behind them and history and blah, blah, blah. Those are other videos. We're not going to talk about that today. So for you to make this work, you have to have a Bird43 cabinet case, which that's what this is. This is the same case that version 1 was in, okay? You have to have yourself a case. And what you're going to do is you're going to remove, if you have a Pep Kit, you're going to remove the Pep Kit, and then you're going to remove the meter movement. So that requires you taking the back off. That's removing these 4 screws on the sides. You're going to take the back off, then you're going to remove this screw here on the side, right here, and then this screw here on the side, right here. And from there, after you undo your coax connectors off the back of your meter movement or Pep Kit, just going to leave that hanging, which we're going to show here in a minute, and you just slide in this new meter, and you're going to utilize either this storage hole, and this hole is in the side of the cabinet to be able to hold extra elements, or use this storage hole, and that's going to allow you to have your charge interface and the computer interface, which, if I'm not mistaken, I don't believe the software is fully developed for that, but it is in the development stage. There are going to be different generations of software and firmware that you can run on these meters. We'll get into that in a minute. So this is basic what you're going to need. A case without the meter movement, a line section with the coax attached to it on the inside, and you're going to need some elements, which we'll get to here down the road. Let's set that aside. When you receive your package from Steaming Coax, it's going to show up in a nice little box just like this. If you're in the United States, you're going to have all the import paperwork like this on the side of the case. And inside, you're going to have professionally packed in just like this. Now I took one of these out in the sneak peek video to show to all you guys. But when you get it, this is what you're going to receive. Okay? It's meter number 1. Here's meter number 2. Here's our charge and external port power options. Okay? Let's get rid of this pack of material. Throw it off to the side. Let's change our angle on how we're looking at things in the universe here. We're going to come over to the ubiquitous right-hand side view. You guys have all come to know and love. Let's take let's go ahead and let's take this off. And in here you're going to find that there is a nice little foam pack. And on the inside, you're going to have a little bag. It's going to have some rubber stops, some hardware, some little plastic hardware in the inside, new screws, washers, and some zip ties. He's thinking for the bigger picture. This is the most professional digital conversion kit I've seen yet. There was one other that was put out there, but it is no longer in production, and there was some serious downsides to that meter, and it wasn't too awfully accurate. But we're not going to get into that. Like I like to say, and like I said in the first video, and I want to be very clear with my choice of words, this is one of the world's first digital Bird meters. Is it the first? No, this is one of the first. The external guts of this particular unit look exactly like version 1. The internal construction is completely different. Different processor, different software, different interface, different everything. This unit will show up with an 18650 350 milliamp battery in it. I went to a ham club meeting the other day, and I took version 1 with me, and I left it on the entire meeting, and everybody that picked it up and looked at it turned it off, and I'd walk back over and turn it on. And they're like, "You're not worried about the battery going dead?" I went, "No, not at all." With what the current consumption is of the meter to make it work. First is the storage capacity of the battery internally. We did the math once, me and the gentleman at Steaming Coax, and it's like you could leave this thing on for like a week or something. And even at that, you can plug it in and just recharge it with your USB port here on the side. There's a charge indicator light, which we'll go over here later in the video. And there's a bunch of expansion that I can come back and talk about after we do the assembly. He sent me 2 units. He sent me 2 units. One of these I'm going to do as a raffle gift to my local club as a promo deal. The original version 1 meter I'm going to give to my Patreon supporters. So somebody out there in Patreon land, I'm not too sure how I'm going to do the giveaway yet, and I'm going to give it away, is going to go to one of the Patreon guys. My local club, they're having a lot of fun. It's the most active amateur club I've ever seen here in town. The guys that run it actually have a good heart, and they're not all ego driven about who knows the closest dude that and you know how ham clubs eventually get. They all get ugly and then they implode. But when they start out, they're a lot of fun and everybody's happy and everybody's really good and the leadership is strong, and that's where we're at with this club, and I want to see the club grow. So they're trying to get their first repeater online, or repeaters online, and they're trying to get funds together for that. And I said, I have a great promo idea. So the gentleman that's in my local club that I'm a member of, the only amateur club that I'm a member of, by the way, you guys are going to get yourselves one of these, and I'm sure the video is going to get played at this video here is going to get played at some point or another at one of the club meetings. All right. So you're going to take it out of the bubble wrap, and now what we're going to do is we're going to go over here and we're going to take the back off the Bird43, just like what we talked about. So we've taken the back off the Bird43 case. This is the coax to which I was speaking about. We've got our hot, and then we've got our ground. Center conductor and ground. All this is 50 ohm coax. So if you wanted to, you could put this line section on the back of your equipment and then just have this case remoted. Remember, gentlemen, I'm having to shoot this video from the perspective of the average Joe that is wanting to get himself a little bit better meter than, let's say, I don't know. Let me grab this one over here. Say like a Dozy Test Center, or let's say something that was produced by MFJ. Okay, or there's so many, but they're wanting to upgrade to something that's more reliable and a little bit more accurate. So I got to approach it from that angle. This is the coax that you're going to attach to the back of the unit, right here, right there, just like that. So ground over here to negative, center conductor over to positive. So while I got you here, let's all talk about mounting options. This young gentleman is a smart man, and he recognizes that there are more ways to mount this than any Bird43 case. Us guys that are in the CB world, and some of the old timers that have been out there for a long time, understand maybe we want to have more than one, right? Well, I could take all of this mess and consolidate it down to a smaller cabinet if I wanted to, but then I'd have my line sections all over the place and nobody would know what was actually attached to anything. But for the guys that are in the know and maybe have been doing radio a little bit longer than the average guy, especially if you're in a mobile application, you'll have your meter in your dash, in your glove box. Some guys used to put them inside the ashtrays. You can put this line section in and attach it anywhere in the system, and then have your signal feed line run to the meter remote location. Well, if we notice on this case, it's got 3 openings in the front. You see these? 1, 2, 3. If we take note, 1, 2, 3. So you can mount this inside of here from the back. Mount it up, just like what we do with the bird meters. The bird meter movement has got mounting points, one here, and one here on the inside, and they use little rubber insulators to hold the meter movement away from the case on the inside. Little rubber feet that touch this back inside wall. Well, guys have gone and made them so that they can do multiples, right? I've even seen 4 and 5 versions of this, okay? My setup over here, I have to have 6 meters involved because I want to look at the forward reflect from my radio, forward reflect from my driver, and forward reflect from the final stage of amplifier. It's called a consolidated metering setup, okay? Or one common meter station. One of the things that we're going to talk about later on in the video is how one meter can power multiples, or you can have multiple independents, right? So this battery can share energy to run multiple meters. That's an improvement over version 1. The ability to take shmoo from here and use it to run other peak units, you can do that. And vice versa with the plug, if I'm not mistaken. But we'll come back to that. Let's go back to reassembling this thing. This is a very high quality battery. Incredibly high quality battery that's in here, by the way. Side note, really important, really important, like really important, is that when you go to reassemble this, on version 1 there was a fuse, and I think there might be one on this as well, but I don't see a direct window for it. The positive post for the battery must go up, okay? Obviously this is the top, all our push buttons are the bottom, our connectors on the bottom. We must put this in positive up. The reason I say that is because when he ships these, there's going to be a little piece of plastic that's in between the positive and the negative post. You need to remove the battery, remove the piece of plastic, and then reinsert the battery. Positive must go up. It has to be orientated this way. Do not plug this in backwards. All right, so our first step is we're going to unplug the auxiliary port. Let's take a minute and let's just observe the construction. Yes, this is all 3D printed, by the way, and he's bought multiple printers, and he is ready to go into full-blown production with this thing. He understands that the radio operator out there is kind of abusive to shit. The inside of the electronics that are mounted here in this input port are potted. He's smart enough to also realize that this plug is the weakest link in the chain, and he's potted this with plastic too. Professional. So you're going to disconnect that. Now we're going to take the meter and we're going to slide it in. So you're going to go, and what you're having to do is clear these pegs that are inside the case, this peg here and that peg there. So you're going to go in, and then rotate, and it'll sit directly in place just like that. So now what we do is we come along with our case screws that we removed, this screw here and this screw here, the screw here and this screw here on the case, and we're going to insert them into the hardware that has been printed into the plastic. So we're going to take our charge port and I'm going to start calling this the auxiliary interface port, but we're going to take the charge port, we're going to slide it in through the hole, and then we go ahead and we pull out and rotate down. So here, let me do this for you, this orientation. So you slide through the hole, and now these are spring loaded, hence the reason for the little clip bushings. We're going to pull out and then rotate down until one of the ears comes over the charge port and holds it in place. Now that can't fall out. So we take our auxiliary port cable, charge port cable, and we're going to plug it in. Now what we have to do is back the mounting hardware on the back of the bird meter, which varies in size and thread pitch depending on what year your bird was made. This meter here in the middle on my setup here is an original Bird43 run number 1, and the serial number on this is either 33 or 35. This one here. Just by the luck of the draw, that's what I got. I don't make a big deal out of it because it's not all that and a bag of chip do. It doesn't matter. It reads the exact same as this one over here, which is a Bird43 run number 731, serial number 4450, or this one here, which is a Bird43 run number 5, serial number 167,533. They've made a shit ton of these meters. There's way more meters like this out there than there is of anything else in the world when it comes to this. There are more bird meters just by sheer number and volume due to government contracts than there is any other meter on the face of this earth for measuring RF. I would strongly argue that, because we're talking hundreds of thousands and multiple different runs. Okay, I've got bird meter cases in here that this number's 300,000 and 400,000. They've been in business for a long time. So that's the reason that he shot for this design for this particular style of meter. Okay, back to the install portion of the conversation. These mounting hardware, we want to make sure that we don't drop anything down inside the case, but we're going to want to back these off. We don't need to completely undo them. So we're going to back these off. And you'll notice that there's a positive and negative. Positive is going to be the center conductor. This wire is going to be our ground. We're going to go ahead and slide them in between the washers and re-tighten the nuts. Let me take this and set this up here for a minute. I'm going to lay down this piece of paper, and we're going to zoom in on this piece of paper here. And we're going to use the piece of paper for contrast because a lot of these parts are really small. So I got to looking at the package of parts here, and I am in love with what I'm seeing here so far. This is the attention of detail that this gentleman is going to. Now let me dump out this packet of parts. In this little plastic bag is pretty much everything that you're going to need for replacement components. New small zip ties for holding down your wire and securing your coax. That's what these are. Now, I don't know about you, this young man that is trying to set this up for all of us has gone and sat down and really thought about some things, which I admire this, okay? He is going to send you an extra case screw. Now down in here is extra screws or extra nuts and hardware for the mounting of the meter. Now, the reason this is helpful is because I don't know about you, me personally, have dropped some stuff on the floor in my life. I've had screws disappear on the floor that you cannot find. I've had washers disappear on the floor you cannot find. These two smaller screws are your shaft mount screws for hooking up your coax, or nuts, pardon me, these are the nuts. Replacement nuts for here and here. The bigger of the three nuts that are going to come in the bag is a new replacement mounting nut that goes in the side of the meter movement, okay? These are replacement washers for mounting up your coax. This is a replacement jumper, which we're going to go over that here in this next segment for some of the different comms and communications that you can adjust here on the back of the meter, down in here and over in here. I had to call and ask what were these little black plastic shaft looking things. I was calling them rubber boots because they are made of rubber. You can disassemble this meter. These are replacement rubber buttons. He's using rubber. On version 1 he was using printed plastic, I do believe, but these are rubber, and he's sending you extra replacement rubber boots for the buttons. These are brand new buttons. He's sending you extras just in case you drop one, or one gets worn out, or one gets ripped off. You can take the meter apart and replace the buttons. This is what I love the most, right here. Focus, focus, there we go. Internally, on the meter, up here at about the 11 o'clock position, right up in here, there is a holder for a surface mount 200 milliamp fuse, which we're going to cover in this next little segment. That is just in case you make the mistake and you put the battery in upside down. this fuse will fail. There's already one in the meter and he's sending you a replacement one just in case. This is a common searchable, which will be in the instructions that come with the meter in the future. A common purchasable through DigiKey and Mouser replacement fuse. It's a 200 milliamp fuse. He's sending you an extra fuse. I absolutely am digging this. Over here in this clear plastic bag, we have auxiliary power plugs, which we're going to get into how that works here in the next segment as well. That is everything that you're going to receive. Just kind of a little gift pack of the things that he thinks, and I also agree with him, the parts that you guys might need in the future to be able to support this thing for quite a long time. Replacement fuse, replacement buttons, an extra jumper that might get smashed, broken, or lost, a couple extra washers, some extra mounting hardware, and a couple extra zip ties. I dig it. Mr. R, good job. Okay, gentlemen, let's go talk about the internals on this meter. So this is what the back of the steaming coax meter looks like. To access the back, you remove the battery. You don't need to remove the holder. You're going to undo all the mounting hardware that's here on the posts, and this unit will separate here on this seam line. You use just your thumbnail and it'll very easily slide apart. So let's take and let's fade over to this picture over here. So over here we can clearly see that he's decided to give you guys, and we're going to start in the bottom left. If you guys can see my mouse here, I'm going to move it around the screen a little bit. Over here in the bottom left is a spare parts bin. I thought I was the only one in radio communication that did this with equipment they built. This is an extra 1K, an extra 10, these are extra resistors, extra capacitors. It's an extra op amp, just I think a transistor of some kind. This green connector, which we can see, let's fade back over to the other video, is this green connector right here. So everybody can have their orientation the same. Let's go ahead and we'll slide back over here. This is a relay internal lockout output. So you can set this meter up to where if it exceeds a certain amount of watts, either it be in forward or reflected measurement, doesn't matter, it will trip a relay that'll allow you to lock out the transmitter. Say, nope, something's wrong, turn off. Which is brilliant for in the commercial industry. This is usually something that is sold separately, that's a completely different unit that you have to have in line. I know for a fact that the coaxial dynamics version of meter that allows us to have this kind of lockout function in it, which is basically just a relay inside of this giant metal cabinet with a couple other boards on it and some measuring tools, and it's got a little audible alarm that's attached to it, is about $5,000, $6,000. He's putting it inside this unit. Okay, that's this little green connector here for you to be able to attach accessory wires and go to. Okay, relay output selector type. Commonly open, commonly closed. All right. Moving up here to the top left, you're going to see these two ports here, J3, J2. Supply input / daisy chain output. The utilization of these two plugs is what allows us to be able to tie multiple meters together. So that's using the 18650 battery that's in this unit. We can use to run multiple other meters in the same enclosure. Now moving up here, you can see this is the 200 amp fuse that I was just jumping up and down about in the last segment. This fuse, it's just like me and him were talking on the phone not too long ago, is brilliant. Imagine buying your meter and you put the battery in upside down and poof, the whole meter's fried. Not worried, we have a fuse. Okay, moving on. We have, for our external voltage inputs, okay, we're gonna tell this thing what we need it to do. Are we going to run on 3 through 7 volts or 5 through 18 volts? So internal, it's got a regulator for that. Or are we going to power this thing continuously off the USB? So it's USB, then 3 through 7 volts, and it's going to come set standard on the 3 through 7 volts to run on the 18650 battery. And then if you want to run it on, you know, let's say 5 to 7 volts or 5 to 18 volts, here you go. I think this is great. For the guys that are running these things in the mobile, you can literally tie these into an ignition switch, 12 volts. And then a lot of my guys that are running serious stuff, you can have this tied into your electrical system in your vehicle, and you can set that on the 5 through 18 volt, and as long as you don't go over 18 volts of charge, you're pretty much safe. This is your voltage supply range selector. Okay, so now we're going to come over here and we're going to take a look at the expansion pack. This is expansion for comms and different stuff if he chooses to go that route. And with the version 1, we had a 3-pin connector like this, and I had to buy a special USB to 3-pin connector prom thing, widgemadjiggy, and he's not going that route for expansion. He's now over using the USB-CT type connector. As he was informing me on the phone, I've never heard this before because I've never done any research on the USB-C connections. This is a connector that was developed by Apple. There's really no license or royalty to it, and it makes me kind of question why most of the amateur community doesn't want to embrace this. It's just like we were talking about on the phone. It blows my mind that you'll spend $3,000 to $5,000 on a new modern amateur piece of equipment and it doesn't have a flippin' HDMI output on it. It'll have an HDMI S-cart or Super VGA or something like that because they don't want to pay the royalty licensing fee for the new modern connector that everybody uses. I think it's a joke. He went the other way with it. He embraced the suck and he's just taking care of business. Okay, we're going to get into this here in a little bit, the DFU model mode selector. We'll cover that later. I wanted to point this out. He's thought about this for a hot minute. These are the side mount posts. Here and here are the side mount posts for your case connectors. As I was talking about earlier, the length of the coax, the size of the mounting posts, those have all changed in all the meters over the years, and also so is the hardware that they've used. Some have very short hardware screws and some have very long. He's thought about this in depth and he's left a lot of clearance in here for screws and whatnot for us to be able to mount these things with here and here. Now that being said, do not be stupid. We're not going to go and run in, 1.5 or 2 inch long pieces of mounting hardware and then we don't understand why the whole thing is run. Be smart about it. Use your brains. We're big boys. Let's slide back over here to this video here. This is a true, honest attempt and doing right and wanting to create something beautiful and easy to use for all of us. Like I said, when these come in stock, there's going to be a piece of plastic here that you have to remove the battery and then remove the plastic, and positive always goes up. Okay, now that I've managed to put all of you guys into a coma, but by being bored, let's talk about different display options. Hi, I'm a big fan of the black display. This is what he's referring to as the gray display. Now, if we go into the menu, we'll do this one first. We'll go menu, we're going to arrow down to display, we're going to hit enter, and then we're going to invert to color. So we invert, yes, click enter, and now we have a black on gray display. We'll go over here, go down to display, we're going to go to enter, and we go to invert color, enter, tell it yes. You see how the two look completely different? And I mean different. You will have the option to select this. It's the same window, same software, same everything. I prefer this one. To me, this is going to give me a little bit better options. This one, which is the gray display, so you guys understand what you're looking at when you go to order, This is the one that's really super trick as far as power consumption. These both utilize backlight. Backlight is what makes us, now you gotta remember these are monochromatic displays, like a calculator, okay? Show you something. We'll go over here, we're gonna go to display. We're gonna go back to invert color and we're gonna tell it this. So invert color, no. And this is, pardon me, invert color, yes. Menu, and we're gonna go here. We'll go menu, display, enter, invert color, enter. Okay, I like the look of this. This meter does something that this meter cannot. And it has to do with the backlight. Here's our brightness. We're going to turn this down to 0. See this? Menu, backlight, enter, turn this down to 0. Oh, the most satisfying moment in all things created. The removal of the safety plastic. You see on the gray meter how that this is also fully, look at the angle. You can still read it at any angle. Let's go over here. Let's go to this one. Go to menu, go to display. We're going to go down to backlight. What is it doing right now? We don't know. The gray meter allows us to have a display like a regular calculator from when we were kids, like a Texas Instruments or whatever. The backlight makes a significant difference in hours of operation. This has 50 hours worth of operation, technically. This one, in this mode, has 150 hours worth of operation. So you can leave the meter on for 6.25 days in this mode. Now, when you take and you turn the backlight up, okay, this is when the number of hours of operation starts to drop to 50. And that's at full 10. Now this is still totally viewable, but it's not coming out with the contrast on the camera the way it's currently set up. So check this out. The brightness at full 10, which is completely unnecessary, you get 50 hours worth of display time, which is still 2 full days. Turn the brightness on this up all the way. It's still totally viewable. The downside is we start to have display fade right about there. But then boom, it's fully viewable again. Okay? This is your high hour unit. This is your low hour unit. This will get somewhere between 100, it'd probably be like 75 hours worth of display time with the brightness at 5. This is the more efficient unit as far as power consumption because we're turning down the backlight LEDs. When you go to order, these are your options. The gray display or the black display. I prefer this display. To me, this is way cooler looking. But I'm just saying, both options are available. They work just equally the same. This allows you to get much more battery life out of it. But now if you supplement with external power, either from here through the USB-C connector or through your auxiliary power port internally, which we just talked about, and with our available to run off any kind of wall wart plug, literally 3 to 18 volts, it's indefinite. As long as the LEDs last, and we all know LEDs last forever, right? Okay, now we got that covered, let's move on. So in here is already the software, and it's already all set up for this. I just learned this, by the way. This is our USB-C connector on the inside. Now with a GUI program and just a couple other little pieces of free software, which there will be links from the steamingcoax.com webpage, you can take the USB-C connector and plug it into any computer, and you can take your information that you're getting off the front of the meter and you can have it displayed on your computer. This is not like the new $4,000 Bird meter unit that uses a USB firewire, like what we used to use on printers and stuff from the 1990s and early 2000s. This is a modern connection, and the software interface is free. The software is fully developed and it's ready to rock and roll. So when you buy the meter, you'll be able to go to steamingcoax.com, download the video or download the software with no complex driver install, and be able to bing bing and just be able to look at what's going on the meter on your computer monitor. So you could literally have this unit totally remoted and just check it out from the computer. But that's through this USB port up here in the corner. This plug here is for charging only. I mean, look at the number of wires going to the plug. There's just not enough for communication, right? So for us to get the fancy dancy communication, we've got to go through this port here, the USB-C plug on the inside. So this could potentially be a whole nother YouTube video all in itself, the menu functions, and how easy and also how complex you want to make it. Let's start off with going over here to configure. Let's go right to here. So we enter into the configure menu, and let's scroll over to the menu help. Let's enter into this. Menu help. Do you want the menus to be able to help you? Yes. Let's turn this on until you get used to what you're doing. So what this menu is telling us is if we press and hold any menu item to view the information about it. Cool. I like knowledgeable stuff. So let's go meter cal. We're going to go and press and hold enter. And now it's going to give us a short little synopsis on what each meter function does. Okay, meter cal. Compensates for any voltage offsets caused by AC/DC input or buffer inaccuracies. Don't forget to save. The don't forget to save thing is very important. I'll give you our first example of this just in a second. Cool. So we're going to exit out of this because we're not interested in doing this right now. And remember, if you ever get yourself upside down, all you got to do is shut the switch off, turn it back on. It's going to bring us right back to the home menu. And because we didn't utilize the save function, ready? Oh God, so nice. Because we didn't utilize the save function, everything that we just played with inside this thing didn't change nothing. So now if I hit supply and press and hold, supply help. Okay, menu back out. So now that we've got menu help out of the way, that's going to alleviate a lot of talking on my part, and it's stuff that you can explore. And when you get the manual from steamingcoax.com, you can figure it out on your own from there. Let me show you the basic setup for this thing. First, we're going to go into elements. I have my first element set up as 5 watt. Let's use option number 2 for me to explain to you how to set up all your measurement points. So you're going to go down here, you're going to hit use. It brings you to the scale function. Now, this was a situation there where I had a long chat with him about it. I said, really, how hard would it be for us to just put, 5 milliwatt, 10 milliwatt, 100 milliwatt, 1 watt, 5 watt, 10 watt, 25 watt, and so on through the scale. Just go ahead and preload those and people can just pull up whatever element they want to use. And he points out to me something that I've seen, and it didn't really click in my head. He points out to me that one, he wants to make it expandable. So if somebody decides they want to make their own elements, because that is an option that is available to us. If somebody wanted to go out and buy the meter element pieces and create their own elements, they could do that to measure whatever they want. But the industry is littered with oddball meter elements. Here's a good prime example. This is a 60 kW element for 2 through 30 megahertz. This is made by Bird. This only works in 1 meter. Now, there's a couple little different versions like this, but there's all kinds of different scales of elements that are in the market, either be from Coaxial Dynamics or Bird. So the only way we can get to all of those odd duck sizes is by having the scale window in here. So 1-to-1. 1-to-1 allows us to have, we'll say 1-to-1. 1-to-1 allows us to have 10 milliwatt, 100 milliwatt, 1 watt, 10 watt, 100 watt, 1K, 10K, 100 kW, back to 10 milliwatt. So if we back up and we take the scale and say, okay, now we want to get to all the odd duct stuff. So now we'll go 2.5. Well, 2.5 allows us to get to all the odd duct stuff that we're used to working with. 25 milliwatt, 250 milliwatt, 2.5 watt, which I've never seen, but I'm not saying it's not out there for some whatever. 25 watt, which I have seen. 250 watt, I have not seen that, but I'm sure they're out there. 2.5 kW, they're out there. 25 kW, I've got one of those right over there. 250 kW. Okay, so we'll back up again. Scale. So 3.5. I've never seen any of these scales before. 320. It just builds in flexibility. So understand that 99% of us out there are going to use the 1.1 and the 2.5. Enter. So now let's say I want to set up my next element that I program in here as being 250 watt. Enter. We're going to tell it that we want to use this. And then we're going to back out one more level, back out again, and we want to scroll over to save. When you hit save, it saves everything that you currently have programmed in the meter to do. Yes, save. It's now saved. Configuration saved. The reason that's important, as soon as we turn the meter off, if we hadn't saved everything that we just did as input would be lost. We're now still on the 250 scale. So menu, element, 5 watt, 250 watt. I'll probably set this one up as 1,000. 1,000 is the most ubiquitous meter element. It just is. It just is. Menu. There is so much room for expansion, and there's so much stuff this thing does that I don't have enough time to sit around and do the video for that. I'll probably do it in another breakout separate video for him just to host through his webpage, that you guys can go to the webpage and listen to me tell you how it all works, because I'll literally be just reading the manual to you. This is how you set up the interlock. This is your configuration. This is the info for the meter, like what version that you're running of software. How do you want to set up your supply voltages? You have your manual input on the front, and then you have your physical input on the back with the jumpers. How do you adjust your display, and what you're measuring and what elements. Make sense? Okay. He nailed it. Home run, homie. Yay, a digital meter that's spot on the money. For Bird43. Yeah. Okay. I know I just ruined all the test results. If you guys knew how hard this was to get this to work, this for him on his side of the street, he had to change processor units, had to increase his sample rate by, it's like 5,000 or 10,000 times or some ridiculous number. I know I'm off on the number, by the way, but I'm excited. I'm excited. The sample rate, he had to write special software to where it was sampling a large portion, not like 2 or 3 times a second, but like 500 or 600 times a second. And in that RF signal pattern that it's sampling, there is inherent noise that is covered up by the analog meter movement of the Bird. I'm telling you, the Bird meter setup was great when it was developed in the 40s and the 50s. Today, there's more information that we can see because we have the ability to capture and have a higher sample rate and reasons. He had to write software that was doing comparative measurements and says, okay, and the 1 second worth of time, 1/1000, it's measured the peak envelope power 500 times, let's say. The number's actually higher than that, but it doesn't matter. Out of that 500 times, there's 25 or 30 little dirt spikes that just are present from the AC to DC conversion in the way the meter picks up and operates. It's just garbage. It's irrelevant data. With a low sample rate, it was giving him a false measurement of what the actual peak power was, okay? And so it was making the peak meter read wildly inaccurate. And I said, you know, we've worked together, and he exclusively on his side of the street, 100% created. I'm in love now. It's like the hot chick that we all saw when we were in high school. And then when we got to date her, we found out she couldn't cook. She'd never seen a vacuum cleaner a day in her life, and she didn't understand how to do anything in the hygiene department. You know what I'm saying? But she was really super hot looking, kind of a sheltered Amish girl or some kind of thing. He's digging a hot chick that knows how to cook, clean, and is a freak in the bed. You know what I'm saying? This is great. So we're in peak mode, and we're just looking at peak mode. Now I've got this 100-watt element. So let's make sure everybody understands what we're looking at here. So I've got a 100-watt element in peak envelope in 2x, 50-watt element in average, and over here in the steaming coax meter, I have a 100-watt element, okay? If you're new and you've never seen a peak kit with a multiplier, I've got to explain to you how to read this meter. When this needle goes all the way over here to the right, that's 200 watts because we have the multiplier in play. All right. Right down the middle, which is not the middle of the meter, it's Bird, 40 and 60. So right down the middle here at 50, that's 100 watts, and 120 watts, 140 watts, 150 watts, and so on, all the way to 200 watts. Hello, audio. That's spot on. Hello, audio. Now what we do see killing us, and this is a perfect example of this, is measure, enter. Peak hold is where we go to adjust this. And we're going to drop this down to about a second. Yeah, about a second. Otherwise, if we go lower than about a second, I'll show this to you here. Let's go down here to, we'll say half a second. And we might get meter flutter, but I doubt it. Hello, 1, 2. Hello, 1, 2. This meter allows us to read over 150% of the meter elements. It's 200%. Right here, this bar that's in the top shows us, that bar right there in the middle shows us the actual full element. And allows us to go past it by 2 times, or by 1 time. So it allows us to go to 200 watts on the scale up top. The digital meter will continue counting. Hello, 1, 2. God, look at how quick that thing counts up. Hello, 1, 2. It's 19.19 watts. That's spot on with this meter. That's slick. So we're looking at the middle scale on this meter. Hello, 1, 2. Remember, this is an average. This is in peak. So now let's change our mode. Let's go to average. By changing the mode, all we got to do is press the buttons down. This is instant measurement. Hello, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. See how quickly that's reading? That's unusable data to us, but he's offering that to us as an option. Here's the average number. Hello, 62 watts. So to back that claim up, let's take the 50-watt element out of here. We'll put the 100-watt in its spot. So 62 watts, no multiplier implied, so we're reading the bottom scale. We're going to be right here by the 60. I bet we're pretty darn close. Hello. Hello. Now remember, there's a variance between each element. Bird in coaxial dynamics has the standard. The standard is 10%, so it's plus or minus 5%. So plus or minus being gracious and showing us 5% more or 5% less. That's the standard. Bird's new meter they just came out with, they're claiming a 4% accuracy in certain modes of operation. This meter here depending on how you do your calibration for your elements and your measured certified input signal that you want to measure the elements against, you can achieve a 2% accuracy. So this meter is twice as accurate as a Bird, the new Bird, what is it, 4432A or whatever it is. The brand new $4,000 meter. This is twice as accurate. It can be achieved that. Out of the box, it's 5%. Certified. So the main variable now in the question is how tight a tolerance are your elements set up for? Well, you, me, everybody else, we're going to be working in a 5% standard. At a 1, 2, 1, 2. Now in a real world test situation, which we're not wanting to do with this video, I'd have an absolute metered amount of signal putting in. Doesn't matter to me. I know my community. Absolute metered amount, and we do an A to B comparison. That's not the way any of you guys operate. So what's the point of shooting a video like that? You guys just want to put the element in and go measure it and know it's close enough. Man, that's great. So what's it showing me for reflect for fun? 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. And that's in peak mode. Hello, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. This is a 5-watt element in reverse, back from my Bird 10,000 watt dummy load. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. So that little tiny needle wiggle right here. Hello, 1, 1, 1. 0.27 of a watt. It's just a hair over a quarter of a watt. That's awesome. You got to remember, we're going to have slightly different meter readings because of my setup here for the test jig. And I say that very loosely. Remember, we've got this connection, plus we've got another whole sampler we're going through, plus this meter, and this meter. Of course, this is going to read a little bit more. Man, I'm telling you, bro. Good job. You nailed the peak. The peak was the biggest thing for me. I told him, I swear, more than a dozen times, if we can't get the peak meter reading to be spot on, just stop. That's what he means. I'm telling you, you have 2 or 3 different layers of radio. One's going to be the amateur community, the other one's going to be the CB community, and the other one's going to be the commercial community, right? The commercial community, I strongly implore him to shoot his own YouTube video with his measured and certified input signal devices. That's going to speak to those engineers. I'm speaking to the ham and to the CB community. Good job. I mean, it's spot on. I mean, it is spot on. So I have the back off the Bird43, and I figured, why not? Instead of having an extra jumper into the equation, I just took the line section directly out of the meter. It's already got the adapter on it, and it's attached directly to the back of the 4-transistor amplifier here. We're going to do a static carrier test, and then we'll do a peak envelope test. So in here, I have a 1,000 watt element. This is the same element that normally sits in my average meter that's here in the middle. This one reads about 5% low. Okay. I have my standard 1,000 watt element in place in its standard position that you guys have watched over 2,000 videos on, with this element being right here in this hole. It's about 0. It's right on the dead money. But you'll notice that there's going to be like maybe a 5% difference between here and this element, and I can verify that for us here in just a second. So we've got our meter set up for 1 kW. We're in peak. This is in 1 kW. It's also in peak. We have the mic gain on the radio off, and I'm just going to show you carrier level. So this amp keys in at 0.3 of a watt. And let's go ahead and we'll bring this radio up. So that's about 100 watts. A little bit over. So there's 100 watts. Let's bring the carrier up a little bit more. So we'll say that's about 300, 200. So right there at 3. A little bit low yet. Needle's width, maybe. Dead on the money at 300 watts, right? That's pretty damn close, right? So now that you don't think that there's any sleight of hand, let's grab what has now become the most inaccurate portion of the whole measurement system is the element. We'll take this 1,000-watt element, we'll put it in this hole. We'll put this 1,000-watt element in that hole. And let's see what we get for results. You see the difference? By flip-flopping the elements around, we're now seeing 20 watts more or less. That is well within Bird and Coaxial Dynamics' tolerances of element production. I'm here to tell you. Now, I'm not afraid to show this on video because we've talked about this many videos. So, we want everything to read the same. Take that element out, put this element here, and put this element here. Ready? Everything's back in sync with the universe. Isn't that interesting? Okay, so I moved the elements around. We're now in the center Bird43, which does not have a peak kit. Well, it's got the peak in it, but the peak kit's off. Let's see how we track on average. There's about 100, yep, so we're right on the money there. There's about 200. Pretty darn close. And let's see what we got going on for average underneath peak operation. Hello, audio, audio. Hello, audio. Shut up, take my money. That's all I gotta say. This reads a little bit slower than that does, by far. Watch. Watch real close. Hello. We're already at measurement, right? Around 500 watts. 460 to 500 watts, right? Hello. Wow. Man, it's going to pay to have good set of lungs on you when you use this in average, that's for sure. But it's, I mean, they're right there with each other. That's crazy. Hello. 1111. Oh my Lord. That's awesome. That's awesome. If you guys really knew how hard it was to try and get two 1,000 watt elements to be almost exactly the same with each other, or two 100 watt elements, or two 5 watt elements, or two 1 watt elements. That's why if you ever go and you're picking an amp up from somebody, take your own element for God's sake, because it's the one that you're used to reading, right? Just saying. Just saying. Good job, brother. And I mean this seriously from the bottom of my heart. The last thing that impressed me this much was the Telepost LP100, and then the 500 and the 700s. Very impressed with those. This, for its price point, how it works with everything that we currently have, it doesn't need to have a new coupler, you don't have to have new connectors, you don't. That's all I can say. So all I can do is point at it and be, I wish you guys could see the smile on my face. I'm very, very impressed. As I begin to work on yet another high amperage consumption, big RF generating machine, I want you guys to notice that we're going to run this in the middle position for a hot minute. I believe in this meter, and from what I just saw after playing with it for about a day, I recognize two things. One, I'm going to have to circle back to this in a week or two and do another video. And then in this other video, what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to cover a lot of the menu settings and stuff that would bore you guys to tears. In that next video, we'll make sure to cover all the different things that you can do to change the calibration functions in the meter and how they work. Out of the box, it's going to read almost dead on the money with your current Bird43 meter system, if not a little bit more accurately than what the Bird43 can read. So that means we're underneath the 5% tolerance, right? Because Bird and Coaxial Dynamics have a 5% tolerance window that they use. So it's going to be plus or minus 5%, so 10% variant window, right? We're under that by a country mile. It's very, very accurate. And it has the ability to become even more accurate than that. And you have to make those measurements through the different menu settings. One of the things I want to make sure I pointed out was that it's got a hold time for average and a hold time for peak, and it's got a refresh time. All of those things are variables inside the meter. It's amazing all the different things that the Steaming Coax version 2 meter can do. I believe in it. It's a good product. I know I got a little carried away in a video because I was excited. I'm really excited to finally have a digital meter that works the same as a Bird43 and is more accurate. And if you knew how much time and energy this gentleman has put into making this thing work for all of us, I was excited for him as well. And it was really neat to be able to call him today and say, dude, don't touch nothing. Don't touch nothing. It's good. Now he's going to continue developing it. He's already got a new set of firmware that's out there that I need to upgrade to yet. I'll cover that here in a week or two when I get done with this little project, and we can come back and talk more about that. But in the interim, gentlemen, version 2 is ready to come to market. He's ready, and I hope all of you guys are ready as well. This is just one of these things that I found out there that was innovative, and I thought that all of you guys might want to enjoy. And through the power of the Patreon supporters, by the way, and they've allowed us to watch this entire video without ads. Thank you very much, Patreon supporters. If you feel like joining us, like I said in the beginning, go to patreon.com, set up an account, come find BBI Amps, and come join us. But through the support of them, I'm able to go off and do little side projects like this. And yeah, I'm just grateful. I'm really grateful. I could stand here and be all cocky and be like, oh yeah, my life's awesome and I get to do awesome shit. I'm grateful that I get to be here, and I'm grateful that I get to participate in the radio hobby on the level and at the place that I do. I think it's fun. And I appreciate everybody that follows along and is, well, paying attention to my journey through it. We're all in this hobby together. So on that note, gentlemen, I want to say thank you. I appreciate every single one of you guys that watch the videos all the way to the very end, give me a thumbs up, maybe make a comment or two. Remember, if you got any questions or anything I can do to help you, that's the number. It rings to my cell phone. And I'll do the best I can to answer. Some days I can't get all phone calls returned. I try though. I honestly try. Steaming Coax version 2 is out. It's rocking and rolling, and it's pretty damn accurate. On that note, I say I'll see you. Click, click. And boom, diggity. Quack, bang.